It was speed traps all over. From here to Canyon Falls.
But they were busy with theirs.
It's weaving and dodging. My phone's working silent.
Speed's ready and everything. All right, it's 7 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order.
Then go around and check them.
All right, anybody here for public forum?
Terry probably did.
Okay, and name, rank, and serial number?
My name's Ann Lyons, I live in Harmony, and I just wanted to talk about communication a little bit. I feel like, I've lived here 5 years now, and I feel like I've spent so much of it in the dark. I don't know how to keep up with what goes on in the town. Maybe people don't care about that, but I really do. I really want to know what's happening and why, and where our tax dollars go. So I just wanted to, there are 3 different sections I'd like to talk about. One is Facebook. I think it's a complete failure to use Facebook to notify the town of things, because they have an algorithm. It comes out when their algorithm tells them it should go out, and it doesn't mean that we get it in a timely way. So, and I know that we do phone things as well. And I have to call my neighbors to tell them when I get a message. They don't get them. They didn't know anything about a gas leak. They didn't know anything about it, or the water thing. So it just seems like, bug spraying, I want to know, so I'm not out there, but I don't get those. So it just seems like we have to find a better way to notify the public of what happens in town. I'm sure some people have no problem at all, but just on my block, we have 3 different ways that it can go wrong. So that's one section. The other section is microphones and meetings. It's really hard to listen to these meetings online. I don't know if any of you have ever done it or tried to do it, but I don't know, my far enough away, too far away. I don't know what the rule is, but you can't hear them a lot of the time. And there's tapping that gets sent out, but we can't hear voices. So, and then the third thing is an open meetings law problem. I'm very interested in the library here in town. I want to know, and I'm very concerned about book banning and book hiding and book nonsense. And I'd heard about that there was an issue, and I was really anxious to go to the meeting. And on the thing that was mailed out, it said it was last night. It wasn't last night. It was a week ago last night. So, I mean, that is just, that's hard. I mean, we'll go to meetings if we know when they are. What do you?
I'm trying to get Erica to change the camera. I got a text and they can't see anybody. No.
That's supposed to be automatic.
Oh,
Apparently that was up further.
Can they hear us?
I think so. Thank you, Erica. Sorry.
There
Thank you.
go. Well, I don't mean to be critical. I know that you have many bigger problems, but I think communicating what you're doing is very important. So, that's it.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. So we have a motion for the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion for the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion, we'll call for a vote on that. All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. New business.
Yeah, Doug is here to speak. It was brought to my attention that he wanted to be on the agenda tonight, so, Doug, you can bring up your concern and what you would like to see happen, and we can have some discussion about it at least.
It seems to me, first of all, is there a ordinance about noise in
We have a
town?
noise ordinance.
Noise ordinance, but we don't have anything as far as what you're talking
Yeah,
about. for sure.
There's no Jake breaking.
Well, I would think that a noise ordinance would be applicable to the jake breaking that takes place with all the big trucks coming through. And they seem to not only make a lot of noise, but also go through very quickly. Um, Just, it would help, I would think, even just to put up signs that say noise ordinance is enforced in the community, but on the edges, take 4 signs. And then maybe once in a while enforce it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how the enforcement works. That's gotta be difficult, but, but the signs would
Jake
probably
break,
help.
a Jake breaking ordinance probably is easier to enforce than a standard noise ordinance. Because usually a noise ordinance carries decibels. I haven't looked at ours specifically. But from an enforcement standpoint, I would say that the Jake breaking one would be easier to enforce. The problem that I see, and I know that the deputies sit at the fire hall and things, and whether they hear it or not, I don't know. It doesn't happen all the time. I'm not saying it's not happening, but it's being in the right place at the right time to enforce it. So,
And, sitting at the storage sheds would be a good place because they come in from the east and they just roll. And they,
I see other towns have the signs, and I suppose that stops some people from doing it.
I would say, I mean, our bedroom faces actually 139 and 52,
Mhm.
and we have our windows open most of the time and we don't hear it. It doesn't, I don't, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. It's not, there's probably more issues with motorcycles that leave town, or loud cars or that I notice. Again, not saying it's not
well, the
happening.
trucks leaving town too.
Yeah, and there's really nothing we can enforce there, you know?
Yeah, but, yeah, the jig break, they
Yeah.
could stop that.
Correct, absolutely, absolutely.
I don't know if putting up a sign would help or not, I don't know.
It might not.
I mean, it's worth a try. I'm not that upset about it,
Mhm.
but and backswing on number 4, you know.
Yeah.
Right. So in the packet, when Cindy come in and had talked with me, I had grabbed a sample ordinance. It's actually in our new code that we haven't fully adopted yet, and we'll be going through. But it's and Greg and I had talked about some like terms with really calling it Jake breaking. They have that's actually a trademark term for one of the diesel motors. So there's a lot of this dynamic brakes, Jake brakes, Jacobs brakes, C brake, pack car, and other similar engine retarding brake systems. It lists this whole thing out. So that alters the normal compression. So there is a sample ordinance in there that, you know, if you wanted to pursue in, you know, adopting this ordinance, we could, you know, include this language. I suppose we could modify our noise ordinance to include this, and I can bring that to another meeting.
So did you write this
Or-
up as like a draft, or like could we adopt it tonight?
Yeah, is this a piece of a noise ordinance, or is it a separate ordinance?
Piece of the model code.
Pieces of the model code.
And so if, and I know this has been on the agenda, would be to review the entire model code and maybe do a whole update to the entirety of city ordinances. So
Yeah.
if that was imminent, this could become just a part of that process and you do it all at once.
And we
Yeah.
could make that next month's process if we wanted to do the whole code and then go through it.
If the adoption of the whole code wasn't on the table or imminent, then you just snip this into your current ordinances for now.
But we could do both. We could like include this tonight, adopt it, and go through that process.
Then it would just be part of the,
Something like this would not require a public hearing, so you could adopt it tonight.
Could we add to it right now? Air horns? From said Jake brake users? You do that to me on hole 4.
Somebody you know.
probably.
Yeah, I mean, that should be a part of it too. They come
I-
through and,
Yeah, then.
I'd have to pull up our noise
So
ordinance.
technically.
And air horns
if they're
might be
putting their
in.
Jake brake on before they get to the city limit, they're probably not in violation of anything.
Yeah, this would only affect them within the municipal boundary. And the sign would probably read the same whether you have the air horn in or not.
Yeah.
It'd be a short and sweet sign, vehicle noise laws enforced, so.
And air horns might be in, I'm not gonna try and pull it up on my phone, it's way too small.
I would just say that it's not something that Doug and I talk about all the time, but it's one of those things that we hear it and we think, gee, we should maybe do something about it. So this is like a proactive community involvement. I don't think you'd find many people in town who say they've never heard it, or, I mean, I don't think it's a controversial kind of thing to talk about, so. anyway.
I hear it from my house.
Yeah, well, it just seems unnecessary. Well, I know it saves fuel for them or whatever, brakes.
Brakes, not it costs fuel.
Yeah, but it seems like it should be easy to try and stop. Maybe won't stop.
It may or may not. I would say that people don't necessarily read signs all the time. And then again, the enforcement side of it, being in the right place at the right time to
And
enforce it.
As long as, I mean, Harvey's been here for a long time and never had a sign up about noise ordinances and what have you. It's gonna take them a while to even notice there is one,
Correct.
if it comes to that.
So it's not something that's gonna happen or change drastically overnight, probably. But I'm not. And there's cities that have them, there's cities that don't have them. It's all across the board. So, and just as long as everybody's understanding that it's gonna take some time to change it, no matter what.
And we're not gonna catch a lot of people that do it,
Correct.
but
Well, that's not
I
the
don't think the
objective. The
sign
objective is. a
Yeah,
little-
absolutely. I'm not,
More peace around.
Yeah.
the sign doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Might as well do it.
So Greg or Sam, this would go into our noise ordinance. This would fall under that.
We'd have to number it appropriately, probably just at the end of that section.
yeah, it would
Tag on ordinance for now.
Okay.
under the public nuisance, under
Yeah.
noise.
But that would be a separate ordinance than this. Like it would be numbered differently. It would look different. We would approve that at the next meeting perhaps.
No, it would look exactly like
It
this,
would-
unless you change it.
Yeah,
Once
I
you
mean,
modify
we could
this.
do this and then just number it appropriately. So this is a 70.04 and ours
Like at 90 or something.
is like 94 or whatever, 90, whatever. Yeah, we can just renumber it appropriately and then we would have to do a summary publication for it to go to be enforceable and then get the signs.
Okay.
So if that's what you would like to do, we would just
Yeah,
need a motion and do all the good things for that.
I'll make a motion to adopt the use of engine retarding brakes into our ordinance policy and look into signs on highways coming into the city.
I'll second that.
Okay. Wow, send fast action.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And I'll interject and say for good practice, if you wanna just, you can either choose to publish this entire thing in the newspaper, or you can publish a summary of it in the newspaper. If you want to do just a summary, that should be a separate vote, and acceptable
Yes.
to approve summary publication versus the whole thing. It's not that lengthy, so in this case, maybe you do want the whole thing, but if you want to save some printing costs, approve a summary.
Might as well put the whole thing in there.
Thank you. I knew I remembered the word summary for a reason today. We just talked about it. Whole thing, publish, whole thing. Okay. We can do that.
Nice job, Doug. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Doug.
Next up will be Mike Bubani. Take the floor.
Good evening. First of all, my apologies to the Harmony residents, because not only am I probably guilty of this, tapping on the microphone, but I also tend to do this with my leg. I don't know if that comes through or not. And your discussion on the Jake Bridge, unfortunately, I'm from Spring Valley, and our course is now closed, has been for years, but holes 1 and 2 along the highway inevitably, but it wasn't any Jake break, it was a deliberate honk.
That's hand
Yep.
delivery.
Yeah, so- Anyways, okay, so about a month ago, I was here and presented recommendations on financing your street utility project this year. And I had, at that time, talked about doing a competitive public sale, which is a little bit outside of your experience, because in the past, we've done a lot of bank placements. But the reason I wanted to do a competitive public sale is I also talked to you about obtaining a credit rating for the first time with Standard & Poor's, and believing that you would get a good rating. So when you approved moving forward with that, we prepared the official statement with staff's assistance. That's the main disclosure document that the rating agency uses. They scheduled an hour plus long management call. I sat in on that with Sam. It went very, very well. And the rating came back at A+ with a stable outlook. So very, very nice. What could help you get the rating up? The next notch up would be AA-. You're really hindered by things that are outside your control. You're a small town, and the local economy is what it is. So really, the only way you could ever try to get to that next step would to just be build up so much in cash reserves that it's basically falling out the windows. You got so much cash, and that's just not fair to your taxpayers. But having said that, one of the things you want to do to prevent the rating going down is protect your reserves. Now, you have a capital equipment / project fund. That fund is going to go up and down all the time. But your main general operating fund, your general fund, they had like 800 and some thousand, I can't remember what it was, several $100,000 in it. You want to protect that balance. So if you ever come across unbudgeted expenditures, they crop up from time to time, you might want to look at using alternate funds other than the general fund, because that's what they hone in on like a laser, is that general fund. Okay, so protect that balance, because it was a very strong credit factor for you in this process. Nice rating. So this morning, we obtained bids. We opened them up at 11 a.m. And normally we hope to get 3 to 5 bids when we do something like this. And we got 5 bids, and I have a handout. Can I approach Mayor?
Yeah. Absolutely. I had one question with, your prior discussion of the balances. That is, when we had our accountant review the city financials, they kind of state that our cash reserves are like double what a lot of cities have.
Yeah.
Or what is necessary. So I'm wondering what kind of level would put, I would guess the first step would be, we would be not stable or
Sure.
something, but what would threaten it? Is there?
I know where you're going with this. Yes, there is.
Okay.
So if you look at your total spending in the general fund at the end of the year, December 31st, they want to see your cash and investment balance in the general fund be at least 50% of that number. And the reason being is because your main sources of revenue in the general fund are property taxes and local government aid, both of which come in every 6 months in about June, July timeframe, and then again in December. So you gotta have enough cash to start the year, make payroll, pay for snow plowing, police protection, and spend it all down to June. Then it goes back up when you collect the first half, and then it goes back down to December, and then it pops back up. And when we get to that point, we want that to be 50%. Now, some towns, 50% of your general fund spending nominally is not a big number. take a town like a Wyckoff or something like that, where 50% might only be $200,000. Yeah, you're hitting 50%, but $200,000 in city finance terms is not a lot of money. So 50, to extend on that, 50% of your general fund spending or $500,000 at least. Now, in your case, you were over that. And what I would suggest is kind of stay where you're at, because you're at about a year's worth of reserves. That's what they're saying, you're about double
Yeah,
what other towns
sure.
try to get.
Yep.
If possible, I would protect that, because like I said, that is a strong credit factor. In fact, what they saw in the last couple of years is your general fund actually crept up a little bit. That also is, they like to see trends,
Okay.
they like to see stability, and that all played in your favor, so. Good job in managing the dollar, so, okay, hand this out. I'm not quite sure I have enough for everybody in the room. We can share it.
We can share.
Well, I got one more for staff.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect, you can share.
And then I can leave mine here as a public copy. Okay, so the first page here is a summary of the bids. You can see Robert W. Baird is at the top of the list. You'll note over on the right-hand side, there's two sets of numbers, and that's because when they made their bid, it generated a lot of, I'm gonna explain this as we go, but it generated a lot of premium, which meant there was cash coming back to the city. And I used that extra cash to drive down the principal amount of the bond. So if you remember, this bond was originally sized at 2.005 million, and you'll see in this little bit here, we're gonna be under 2 million because of that cash coming back. So I was just showing what the bid results were as it was bid originally, and then what the numbers were after I resized. The second page is basically what I showed you a month ago, basically my estimate. So on the right-hand side, you'll see I projected a net effective interest rate of 3.74%. That 3.74% is a combination of the underwriter's discount over on the left-hand side there, the 24,000, and then the total interest paid over the life of the deal. So if someone asked you what interest rate is on the bonds, you wouldn't look at all these different rates down here at the bottom instead of confuse everybody. You would just say the net effective rate is 3.74%. But that's what I had projected. And you can see that it was set at 2,005. Still on this page, notice that my coupon rates and my yield rates were exactly the same. So when I build these things and I provide recommendations to council, I'm basing it under the assumption that the bonds are going to be purchased and resold at par. 2.5 million paid, 2.5 million sold. I know that in today's market, that's not what's gonna happen, but I have no way of knowing with exact certainty how that's gonna play out. So if I had planned on you getting some premium back and reduce the amount of bonds up front, and then it didn't happen the way I said, then you'd be short on cash. So I always go in at par. So then the next page, final page, is basically as bid. So the net effective rate is actually 3.6955. Let's just round up, call it 3.696%. Slightly under my estimate. If you go over to the left-hand side, you'll see the underwriter's compensation is a little bit higher than what I had projected, but the underlying yields down below were better. So kind of offset that. Now you see that in this case, the coupons and the yields are different. So every time, well, just in every single case where the coupon is higher than the yield, that means the underlying customers, so this Robert W. and Baird is gonna buy the whole thing, they're gonna piece it up and sell it to their investing customers. What those customers are doing is they're paying Baird more than par. So look at that first payment of $95,000. They're paying Baird more than $95,000 so that we slap a coupon of 4% on it. All right? And so they're only benefiting from a 3.35 because they're paying more than par. So those dollars get added up, and we total that up and we call it gross production. What's the gross production of the sale? And it generated $82,000. If you look under sources of funds, you'll see $82,000 of premium. So basically, that premium was used to drive down the principal amount of the bond. So you'd be looking at it now saying, okay, the coupons are all 4%. How can we possibly have 3.69% on the net effective rate if the coupons are 4%? It's because we use that premium offsets your overall interest cost. It drove down the bonds. So when I was here earlier, I showed a bigger bond with lower coupon rates. And now you're getting a smaller bond with slightly higher coupon rates. So it works out to be about a wash. But in terms of your debt statistics, this looks better because you're borrowing slightly less money, if that makes sense. So all in all, I felt like it was a good result for the city. Oh, the difference compared to I would just look at your total levies from what I showed you a month ago. So basically, your total levies over the life of the year are about $20,000 less than what I showed you a month ago. Oh, I should also mention, and Sam and I were talking about this briefly before the meeting started. You'll also see on the final version, page 3, there's nothing listed for construction fund earnings. So what's going to happen is when we close on these, you're going to get a bunch of money, and you're just not going to stick it in the drawer. At least I hope not. You're going to put it somewhere where it earns interest. And right now, it's possible for you to earn interest higher than what you're paying on the bonds. Now, normally that's illegal. That's called arbitrage. That's typically illegal. But there's exceptions to the rules. And one is if you spend your bond proceeds within 3 years, earn whatever you want and you can keep it. So I am not counting on any fund earnings here. And I expect if you spend this over the next 6 months to a year, I suppose you have a final lift that waits till next year. I don't understand roads and all that stuff, other than I drive on them. But point is it could be anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000 in earnings that you can use to offset, because we only have $75,000 of contingency in this project. And so it turns out, we burn that through change orders and whatnot. You have those construction fund earnings in your back pocket as sort of an extra protection. Okay, why don't I stop there and see what questions.
That sounds good.
Are you
I was talking
okay
to
with-
Sam about the state fund, what is it, the 4M?
Before, yep.
And I'm
Fund.
pretty sure that's over 5%.
It is over 5%.
Mhm.
So,
We already have a 4M fund account and an investment account there. I did talk with our account representative today. As long as you're okay with going with that route, I have a form I can sign and set up tomorrow. They'll set up a sub account, and so it protects our general fund. We'll just we will put those proceeds in there and pay for the project out of that fund instead of. You'll still see everything that comes through council, but it just would be out of a different account. And it would earn interest, so. They were also willing to provide statements and projected interest earnings. And I have a whole lot more to learn in a phone call tomorrow, but more than willing to set that up, and they're willing to walk us through that and such, so. As long as the council's okay with it.
So the number we're looking at is the Robert Baird, but the first number at 3.6956%.
Yep, the one that says post recycling.
Yep,
That's
Just shy of 2
somewhere in your packet here.
Sounds good. And we're borrowing 1.99 instead.
Oh, Mayor, thank you for mentioning that, because one of the other things is, of all the fees, that $2 million mark has a bearing on the rating. So a rating just under 2 million, it should be $750. Now, typically, they will bill you the full 15,000, but I believe what they'll do is in a few months, they should be offering that $750.
All right.
We have,
Okay, well, if you want to move forward, there was a resolution provided by your bond council, that's passed law. Simple motion, the vote gets that approved, and then after that, we would work with staff in closing on June 3rd, I believe.
June 3rd, yep.
All right, I'll make the motion for resolution 2407.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Well, thank you.
very
Thanks.
much.
It worked out well.
I'm gonna, now go drive by the golf course where that noise ordinance kicks into effect. Cause some slices.
See you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
It's ladies' night, so.
No, it's not. It's not ladies' night yet.
Not till June.
Thank you.
Not till June. I wish. Okay, all right, lots more learning going on tomorrow. Thank you. Next up is liquor license approvals. I have included the ones I've received thus far in last year, if you remember briefly. I'll recap that one. We did get Harmony Spirits all on track with everyone to renew. I'm only missing one. And I think there's one little insurance piece with all of them, but otherwise everything checked out by the sheriff and he signed off on these. So once we have everything, we've got a little working time yet. I tried to get these in early this year. A little bit of working time to piece everything else together, but I'd like approval to process these liquor licenses once I have everything ready to go.
I'll make a motion to approve the liquor license. It says pending all required documentation and issues.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All in favor of the liquor license approvals, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
The next one up is cameras at the brush dump. I'll let Kyle kind of talk about this one. I didn't have a cover sheet with this one. Kind of a little bit more on the expensive side, but just to talk about options. Everyone knows that we did have some dumping going on there. It was some tires, landscaping bricks, you name it. It took quite a considerable amount of time to get cleaned up, but it is cleaned up and reopened. So we've put up a camera. It's just a trail cam, but it seems to be, it's capturing what we need it to capture right now. It's doing a really good job. We have an online platform for access to see that. So if we do have any issues, we can pull photos from that, and do our normal documentation. But Kyle did some research into a better camera system out there, and I don't know if this is something that the city would want to pursue or not, and you guys can discuss from there.
So just to get an idea, because I know we've always talked about it, getting cameras out there or whatever, and it's just been thought about as too expensive of a venture to do it. The phone office said they could make it work by going off the water treatment plant, kind of pulling off from there to, there would have to be a camera at the entrance in order to get a straight line of sight to the water treatment plant. And they weren't sure even if the camera up there would give us what we needed as far back in the brush dump is what we're looking for. So they recommended 2 cameras. And those came in over $4,000 just for the cameras. And then we needed My Energy to set a pole and transformer and Morums to do some underground digging. And that came in close to $4,000.
My opinion.
That
is
doesn't include-
If we got a brush cam out there, let's see how that works. And
That's, yeah, I mean, I jumped on these numbers just to get an idea of what it would be for something rock solid.
Sure.
These cameras we have, or the camera we have now, I think we should get another one. They're solar powered. It's a cell camera. It goes right to email.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's something that's, I think the photo sends within 3 minutes, 3 minutes.
It doesn't take very long. It's within a couple of minutes.
And they're clear pictures. I mean,
they're very clear. It's just that the way our brush dump is set up, I think sometimes things are just a little too far away on the west side of the dump. So if they come in and come to the grass, that's fine. But if they go around to the back side of the brush pile, we aren't getting that activity. And that's where a lot of our issues have been, is around the back side.
Has the brush dump ever been locked in the case of like a fence all the way around it that you could
Yes.
never get in? It did?
Yes.
At some
Yeah.
point, at one point, okay.
And I
And we're gonna have to do something there to close that off at some point, because we want everybody to go through that main access.
Yeah.
But that, I think the biggest thing right now is to see if we can find out who's doing these things. And if they're dumping things that they're not supposed to be able to charge them with illegal dumping, or at least go have a conversation with them and say, don't do it again, you know? I would say at minimum 2 more cameras out there. If not 3, but just to cover the different areas. And it was 200 and
they're $215 or something like.
217 or something like that.
Yeah,
is what we paid.
200 and some dollars that we can get each camera for. And then we do have some used poles we could have set out there and then have them mounted too.
I once had a discussion with a security person. So we had some theft, and I said, I want to set up a camera, but I want it hidden so that people don't know it's there. It's like catching an act. And he goes, no, he said, that's not what you want. He said, you want the camera there, and you want everyone to know it, so they never do the act.
Right.
Yeah.
It's been a good deterrent.
So I think,
Yeah.
if we have a camera there, I think it might just solve the problem. I don't know if we need to see every. speck
Well,
of
what I
land.
would say is that will solve the problem for a period of time.
Mhm.
And after that, once they get used to the camera, they'll forget it's there.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And then we'll have a picture of them.
But not necessarily, because we
They're
have
wrong spot.
different,
Because
we have angles that aren't covered.
even if we tried just one extra one for now,
We could.
we could just try and get it at least set up on the backside. There have been, oh goodness.
As to Jesse's point, when that brush pile gets quite large, the camera where it's sitting now doesn't see the backside of that brush pile.
No,
And when I was out there last and caught a gentleman out there dumping bricks and cardboard, that's where he was at. So where that camera was sitting, he wouldn't have been spotted or seen doing that. So, I mean, for sure, another one at the backside, I think, to catch both sides. I mean, we can start, one more and see how that goes. And
We need another one. I mean,
it's fluid.
They're reasonable.
It's fluid and it's able
it's
to
not,
be added
it's
to
not
at any point.
$8,000 to get cameras.
I mean, there's plenty of signs up there. There's already a sign out there that says there's a camera in use when there wasn't. So, I mean, that's out there. What can be dumped is out there. I mean,
Yeah.
everything's signed. So I don't know about discussion stuff at this point. I'm more in favor of just throwing the book at it as far as I'm concerned.
Thoughts?
So we'll put
Is that
another
okay?
one-
Put one more
another
up?
one.
Put another one up.
All right.
Okay.
City cameras,
Yes.
same thing or different?
Different. We've had over the last couple of years, and I put in your packet kind of a little overview, a cover sheet. We've had anything from spray painting of the urinals in the bathrooms, in the parks, to rocks being dumped in the toilets at the parks, to the point where we've had to close bathrooms down because we had to clean them. Here during the broad daylight, we've had, case in point was last year, Terry had a refrigerator out in the hallway because he was refinishing the floors in the kitchen. And the boxes of baking soda that we keep in there is to keep the smell down were spread out at numerous times all over the floor, creating a slip and trip hazard for people using the community center. We've also had them use take spray cleaner or Comet type material. And that is extremely slippery. If you've never stepped on Comet on a ceramic floor, on a linoleum floor, it's extremely slippery. Just had a lot of issues, broken glass, different things going on in the gym. We wanted to put some here, some at the splash pad. We've had kids on rollerblades at the splash pad already this year. And we also we had enough issues last year. I just learned with the vending machine that they were not willing to work with us unless they put cameras in. So just there's been an increase in that. I don't think we are immune to it. There's been plenty of other cities who have seen a lot of issues throughout the last couple of years. We can do point-to-point systems with outdoor cameras. We can actually, they just added to our quote today for Selvig Park, where we can actually do a line of sight from the water tower where we're doing our utility meter readings from there. So, but this would help hold people accountable and then also potentially mitigate some of our risk and things like that. So I'd like to proceed with that.
So the Wise cameras, are they plug-in or are they battery powered?
These are,
Plug-in.
these are plug-in. These are hardware.
Plug-in,
Yeah,
but they need
they're plug-in.
internet access.
Yep.
Yep.
And that's what the point-to-points are for?
Yep.
Okay, yep. I think it's necessary. I think the labor is the majority of what we're looking at here, which I guess that's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. I mean, to wire this place is, I mean, it's not a lot, but it's just time consuming. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'll make a motion to go ahead with the camera installation per the quote.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? So this is wiring them for the tree dump?
No,
No, no. Mm-mm.
if you look at that quote that's under her memo, it
Under my
has
memo, yeah, the,
office entrance, gym, bathrooms, 2 for the west hall, point north and south, northwest, and the shop, splash pad, Selvig Park, and wastewater treatment facility.
So is it the 4,300 estimate?
3,920.
That was the tree dump estimate that you were looking
Yeah,
at.
43, yeah, there's like a couple pages down.
Does a warranty come with these cameras?
I would hope so.
Okay, I didn't know if they, yeah, I just didn't know.
I
Yeah,
don't
It's right up until they stop.
yeah.
Not that I'm aware. The Wise cameras, they worked really well for me, but they're very cheap.
Are they?
Okay.
Yeah.
They're how do I want to say this? Once we get them, we can always find cameras to hardwire and put in there, but for $50 a camera, I think.
Yeah.
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 It's good quality. I think they take good pictures. It's how long do they last is
Yeah.
exactly. it.
Yeah.
Well,
But
and
this
you
bill,
know,
it's mostly the labor that's
Right.
costing
Yeah.
us.
yeah, and I'm assuming the camera is going to be. I don't deal with cameras, but I'm assuming a camera is going to be a lot like a computer. About the time you get your computer, it's already obsolete. They've already come up with something better, you know. But it's something to at
Get
least
started.
get it started and maybe even just be a slight deterrent, if anything.
Okay, hearing no further discussion, we'll call for a vote. All in favor of cameras everywhere? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. I'll make a motion to replace the garage door.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion in a second. Any discussion?
It currently doesn't close, so that'd be great.
It's the only old door left, isn't it, Brian?
The last, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's original equipment.
All right, hearing no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. right. Food truck.
Yes, so I put in a small agenda item cover sheet regarding the food truck ordinance discussion, to at least have the discussion on how you would like me to proceed and do any research, et cetera. We currently do not have an ordinance that directly would relate and regulate food trucks, relate to them at all. We have a peddlers and solicitors, which is more wholesale and
Going door to door.
people go, yeah. Other cities have completely separate ordinances that regulate license, do all the things that they want to see done with food trucks within their cities. Greg and I can research that, and I just wanted more direction on how the council how you wanted to proceed.
How would this work with 4th of July? Having food trucks in town?
Yeah, that's a good question.
You'd want to address it in the ordinance. I
Yeah,
think.
you probably want to go into it with the expectation that applies uniformly to all food trucks, not based on when they show up or what the event is.
It would be across the board,
Yeah.
right? Correct? It'd be across the board. So it
I
would
would
be,
think so. We could see what other communities have done. That's not a unique problem to Army, I'm sure. Other
No.
communities that may have food truck ordinances probably also have festivals of some sort. So we might be able to get ideas, but, yeah, we don't want to just turn a blind eye to that. Usually you want to have a rule that you actually stick to and enforce, that applies fairly. But I think this came up because there was a concern raised to the city about it. So I think the purpose here tonight is to find out, should Sam invest time in it with my help if needed? Or is it something that's not a concern that doesn't merit further
I would like
resources?
the chamber and/or our food service businesses to be involved in the discussion beforehand, at least. Does that make sense? Is that not?
Like,
About
do you-
Well, are you talking, I guess, to if we go forward with an ordinance or if we leave it the same, do we need to have them involved? I guess I don't know where you're.
If we're going to try to develop or adopt an ordinance, I would like some input from them because it should be something that we want, right? And that the people of town want. You don't want no food trucks like 4th of July. Nobody can come in. How are we gonna feed them all? And you don't want them setting up shop anywhere they want. So what do we want?
What was the concern from the complainant about the food trucks?
just that they were here in general, that we were not regulated, that we were not regulating them, that we just allowed them to come.
So I guess the only ones I see, since we're speaking of the two that come to this town,
Mm-hmm.
they're on private property, aren't they?
Correct.
I mean, that's gonna have to be stated something if we do an ordinance too.
And they're invited by the business.
I mean, the business is bringing them, they're supplying the power, they're gaining business off them as well, and it's private property. I mean, if they're sitting up at the city park on every Wednesday night or something, there's 3 of them up there, that might be a problem, but I don't see a problem with anything sitting on private property.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
Like once a year, the bank has the.
Moommobile,
People
Yep.
down.
the Moommobile with the
bank,
blank,
and
with
then
the,
4th of July, of course, we have food trucks come in. There could be other events in the future. where they can come.
Pork Producers, I think, does some times with the school. I think
Maybe,
the
I don't know. I can't remember.
the cattlemen's come for, yeah, that's right, cattlemen's come for the steak, for
Well, that's been
the,
4th of July and
no, it's just the football game. They
Well, they
do a
do that for
fundraiser
that?
for
Yeah.
the school.
They do.
They've
Pork
done that for
producers have
several
been there
years.
Before too.
Hmm?
Pork producers have been there before too at this football
Yep.
games and stuff.
Yep, there's a couple of different food trucks that will come and it's a, they set up before, like homecoming, I think is a big one, where they'll set up at the football game and you come and you have a steak sandwich and some sides and it's a school fundraiser.
And that would be good to have that addressed, that if it's a nonprofit or if it's a fundraiser for that type of group, or, I don't know.
I don't see it being a concern at this time, so I don't think we need to address it.
I agree.
I think we're doing it for one
whatever.
because one business is bringing it in. You know,
And there you
The thing I see is, we have, and maybe only one complained at this point. But I look at it like when I had a restaurant, all right, I hire people, I pay property taxes, I buy my electricity from the town, I use the utilities. But the big thing is, I'm a taxpayer and I have to do that. And if somebody can just drive in on like my busiest times and take a bunch of my clientele and drive out of town with all the profits, it's like, well, why have a restaurant? Why not just have a truck? Come when you want. So I think it could be a problem.
I definitely think that we want to support the businesses we have that are providing employees. That I agree with all of that. I'd like to see some more basis, I guess, for why it's a problem, especially when it's on private property, and we have all these other special events.
maybe it's this, maybe it's a simple discussion with all of the restaurateurs, and saying, what are your thoughts and feelings on the food trucks to start with?
Could I create
That's why I
could I
thought-
create a restaurant survey?
Sure.
Is that, and we just get their
Let's
input?
let's start there, and then if there's a problem, then we can say, okay, now we can move forward to an ordinance if we feel we need to.
I know the first arguments I heard was when the food truck first came, one of them, they plugged into the city power. It's just like, well, that. So we have the restaurants buying their electricity from us, and then somebody comes from out of town that doesn't pay any taxes and make it free.
Right,
Right.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that got corrected. So do we have anything with a food truck comes in and what if a bunch of people get sick? Is there any liability to the city if we haven't done anything to regulate them?
Not the city, you guys have immunity from most things, so,
Well, and their
And
food trucks are regulated Department of Health.
yeah, hopefully.
Food trucks, I was gonna say,
they're
they're
inspected and
very,
have
very
no
regulated.
Supposed to
with
be
the
anyway.
state, so-
They're supposed to be,
Supposed to be, yeah.
So that's sort of a
but are we
buyer
supposed to check
beware
that?
too, only buy from a food truck that looks through or in the window, hopefully.
Right.
It's good tip for the audience, so.
When I went to Jamaica, the hotel said only eat at restaurants that have running water in kitchens.
Oh, gosh.
Because there were a lot out on the roads.
Oh, wow.
So let's start there. I guess my opinion is let's start with surveying the restaurants and maybe other businesses if needed.
Okay.
See if there's a valid concern here. Or majority
that.
concern.
All right, moving forward. Industrial setback. I wanted to bring this to council. Planning and zoning met the other week. Gosh, like, was that already 2 weeks ago? And they were reviewing their industrial setbacks. They'd like to change the rear setback to 15 feet from the current setback of 30. I would, in order to do this, in order to do an ordinance change, I'd have to set a public hearing. So is requesting approval to set a public hearing for the planning and zoning meeting on June 5th at 7 PM to address that setback change. If that's something you guys would even want to even entertain.
Similar to the prior topic, the point being just to get your temperature on the matter.
Yep.
Of whether that seems like a desirable change to consider, because if it was a non-starter, then we
Yeah.
need not have a public hearing to go through all that work.
Right.
Where was the 30 feet? Where did that come from?
The 30 feet is what's in the ordinance right now.
What's in the
and
ordinance now.
How that, why that number was chosen, who knows?
Yeah.
It might be a very standard number if you did a survey. I think the reason it came up now is there's a prospective development happening in one of the lots up there where it would need the 15-foot setback instead. And the discussion of planning and zoning, people thought that applied across the board, that was still fine.
So there's a 30-foot front, 20-foot sides, and currently a 30-foot rear. I mean, that's that's a lot of
Eats up a lot of.
land, a lot of setback, and there's also other prospective developments in the future that this would also work for, and would give them a little bit more workability with their lot, if that would make any sense. Still allow enough room for a parking lot in the front and whatnot, but
Those aren't meant to replace like utility easements.
No.
We still have all that.
oh yeah, no, this is just their building setback
Just
from their
buildings
property
aren't too
line.
close together.
Yeah.
And I like the flexibility for future folks too, but we could keep it the same and then grant like a conditional use or something for this, correct?
Not a conditional use of the wrong term, but a variance.
A variance,
Exception
thank
to the rule.
Yeah.
Yes, that's another way to solve it on a case-by-case basis. Typically, though, variances are supposed to be rarely given. They're frequently given, but if you're following the real guidelines, they're supposed to be rarely given. So if a business applied for the variance, there's no guarantee they'd get it. So if the city was okay in concept with a 15-foot setback on all industrial lots on the rear, then the easier way is just to change the rule rather than granting exceptions. A lot of the discussion of planning zoning was centered around fire suppression. If there was a fire, it was 15 feet enough, room to maneuver, maybe 30 if you've got the neighboring property to go on.
Depending on
No
which,
fence or
yeah,
anything,
depending on which section you were,
But
side you were looking at.
because folks, it was fine.
I'll make a motion to set the public hearing for June 5th at 7 PM with planning and zoning.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Any more discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Another planning and zoning discussion was regarding a property split and development that I had received. I brought to planning and zoning. And in speaking with Brett, I asked his opinion, and he drafted a memo to council to give his input. There's not a whole lot of information right now, but I just wanted to know how council wanted to proceed, because we have a couple of different things that I think we want to answer, and I just wanted to make sure that we were going in the right direction. And right now, this development is at a property that divides Fifth Street Northeast. There's currently an access to the Keeney property off of Second Avenue and Fifth Street Northeast, but that section, that Fifth Street and Second Avenue Northeast section, is going to change to a 90-degree. They're going to put in some runoff. There's issues with drainage there. Going to change the layout of that quite a bit. We don't have a platted road through there. And they want to, the discussion, what I was told was they want a 1 acre property split off from this parcel on the east side, on the northeast side of the property. And in Brett's memo, you can see that in 2007, when the Jacobson addition was built, it was the wishes at that time, they were hoping to complete that Fifth Street project, but that just did not go through. I have not talked to the property owner yet. I didn't know how you guys wanted to proceed. If
Well, when you mentioned
planning-
it to me, I looked at this and I thought, yeah, it makes sense to me if he does want more development there, even if it's just one.
do we
We
plat
should
the
at least
street?
get the street platted,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you don't want houses that are accessible to the streets.
Right.
I don't think. And we have utilities on it.
We do
where-
have
where the
utilities.
street would be platted.
Correct. Yep. And, and there's some questions there. So I wanted to know how to proceed with this planning and zoning discussion. one of the bigger questions that Brett had was, it's a commercial semi that is intended to be stored at this location. Are they ever going to be loaded? How heavy does it, they are not, what I'm understanding is that these residential streets they tolerate our garbage trucks because that's a service to the community, right? But
Is Third Street a
not
truck
necessarily,
route? I see a commercial truck there.
yeah, no.
Or not the trailer. Are they talking about storing trailers at this one?
So I think that becomes the question.
No,
is-
Don't-
yeah.
I think just
Yeah,
the
I think it's just the tractor from what I understand at this point, but what happens if you all of a sudden you get a fully loaded semi going down a street that is not a truck route? And how often does that happen? But
More than,
it did happen by our house that one time.
Yeah.
He took the wrong turn and that happens. But yeah, I just wanted to know how the council wanted to proceed as far as, do you want to have discussions of platting that street? Not necessarily that it's going to go through in the next year but it could potentially, but 5, 10 years, 15 years. But then we would ensure that our setbacks are met too with this house being built.
Yeah, I'm in favor of having the road plotted.
if we can get, I mean, that
If,
has to be agreeable to the landowner.
Right, yeah,
Right.
so
yeah, like
this is-
start that.
Yep, this is your
conversation.
best opportunity to basically ask for it again. It seems like, and there's the 3 ways you can get it. It can be given to you, you can buy it, or eminent domain. If you had a case for it in the effort, they could do that, which probably not, I'm assuming, in a case like this, but so really.
We obviously have a utility easement that's probably almost the way we, but we probably need more for a roadway.
Mhm.
Just,
and the other one that came up too, and that Brett and I discussed, and I think we talked about it a little bit at planning and zoning. So in that picture, off of 4th Avenue Northeast, sorry, kind of cut that off in the picture. On the right-hand side, 5th Street it goes back to the west again. So the Keeney property currently they've put in a single gravel driveway all the way back to their property. If the homeowner, or if the landowner is not willing to plat the street, is council okay and going to allow another development to go back in there off of that 5th Street, 4th Avenue and 5th Street Northeast, off of it's a corridor basically.
and where?
Where are you talking of
On
exactly?
the east side, from 4th Avenue Northeast, on the east side, on the right side of your picture.
Yeah, so you're
Okay.
talking
So
by
the-
where,
Odine, I
yeah,
think Odine Miller, and then I can't
so
remember.
you're talking to the north of that?
Yeah, so if they were to build off into the west into the property, would you be okay if they put in a private drive there? If they were not willing to plat the
She
street,
talked about this.
Oh, yeah.
the upper right-hand corner. Of the-
They maintain it themselves, but it seems a bit country stylish for a town.
I'm not sure if the city would really have a say in the matter,
Mm.
if they put their building there and own to the roadway, just put in gravel, just like on the other side.
I was gonna say, do we have,
It's really just out of our hands.
It'd be,
It's-
Odine's and
I can't remember.
that is that a platted road?
Yep.
I know.
And we
it's
plow it.
paved. It's paved.
Yep, and we
To
plow
where,
it.
to
Yep.
the end of the pavement is.
Yep, and we do plow it.
It's just that section in between the two.
I think the big issue is gonna be, streets are expensive and we assess 40% of the cost. And so there's gonna be
Well, I think that's part of the discussion that as we move forward, and if they're even
Yeah.
agreeable to look at platting the street number 1 and then
Right.
moving forward from there.
Okay.
But we're allowed to say no if people want to build houses where there's no roads.
I wouldn't say there's no road.
There's
There's
a
access.
road.
Depending upon how they carve off this extra parcel, presumably it would, if it were me, I would connect it to that stub of Fifth Street, and it would be a road.
Mhm.
It's just they have atypical driveway, and that they're driving in like Dave does on the other side, and then turning into the driveway.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, they have a point of access
Yeah.
from there.
You do, yeah.
You know,
You're
Is
not
our-
allowed to tell them we can't take the semi.
Yeah, well, yeah, so the city,
Yeah, there's no truck route on
and
that.
then you still have your zoning rules and you still have your truck route rules, right? So a loaded semi with trailer,
Would be a,
would you look to the truck routes for a remedy? Sam and I talked about, I don't know if we could stop somebody from driving just their semi tractor up there. That would be interesting, we could look into that
Yeah.
further, if we did, but,
Because I know that's, obviously we have one here.
Yeah.
But it happens in other parts of the towns where the
Right,
tractor
right.
comes into town.
in like, in one of the things that Brett had stated was, how is the frequency? So if it's once a week, maybe not such a big deal. If it's every day, the one over here, that does not move a whole lot. Or if it does, it's gone for weeks at a time, so it's, yeah. But, so,
Once the house is there, then how you gonna enforce some one-time rule kind of thing? I think we're,
you mean with a fully loaded semi? Or,
yeah, well,
Fully loaded one's easy to enforce, I think. It's the
just
tractor
the tractor.
coming through, I think becomes a problematic.
Question number one there is an engineering question, is that a problem for city streets?
Right.
If the answer is no, then maybe we need not be concerned about people parking their tractor on their private property. Of course, we already got a rule that says they shouldn't be put on city streets. But if you're too strict with that stuff, you might have.
is he accessing through in front of Dave's, or he's thinking of accessing that from our street?
well, I will be honest, there wasn't a whole lot of information known. They didn't even know they needed to get a building permit, so
Because a semi.
it's a whole lot of research
a
right
semi
now.
with a trailer coming north
This
isn't gonna
point.
make that turn.
Right. No, it's not gonna happen, no, yeah.
Well, they can.
Yeah, with a
There's
50-point
there was
turn.
a cattle pod in my corner once in the snowbanks. So.
Yeah, it was. Totally made the wrong turn. There's a whole lot of questions. This person who wants to, this gentleman who wants to build this didn't know that he had to have a permit and doesn't have a complete site plan. He's not completely ready. Was doing more research, but when I found out where it was going to go, and then he learned that there were ordinances and he put a pause on it until he heard back from me. So, and when I got more direction, so that's where we're at. And I can have the discussions and talk with landowner and
And there's no,
Yeah, maybe
there's
the-
no septics out here, are there?
no, there's a manhole in the middle of that lot.
Sewer that runs through there and a manhole.
Yeah, there's a manhole in the grass. So.
I guess if it's something that they want to pursue, I think the next step is to bring in the landowner and the prospective builder to planning and zoning
We could do that in June.
to start having more discussions related to it.
I will set that up.
Start there. at
Planning
least.
zone and Brett.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
UV project update?
UV project update, it's coming along. In your packet, Brett just wanted to make sure that you guys had this, you were aware of it, you could look through it. After on not page 6, part 6, the preliminary schedule, we're looking at June, July of this year. Brett will come back and we'll request approval for the design and going out to design and then for bids with construction next year.
You'll see the engineering estimate in there too of the
Yep.
1.36 million. That's where they believe it's going to come in. There's a site plan of where the proposed building would go, how that would kind of work. It's all kind of spelled out in there. We met as the utility board, utility staff, other staff with Stantec. What day was that? Last week, Thursday?
Last week, Thursday.
And went over all of this somewhere in there.
Yes.
Um,
Friday.
So as far as planning and zoning and that, we're hoping that we can keep moving forward. The tablets are getting harder to get in bulk, getting more expensive. So this $73,000 savings that it shows in here could potentially be more than that. So just want to go bring it in front of you and keep it in your forethought to kind of keep moving forward. Kind of be proactive in case the state decides to, MPCA decides to change something so that we don't have to be reactive, I guess, is the other thing.
Maybe they'll give us some money.
No.
No.
They'll say do it and it's going to cost you more.
So what's the question? Move forward with one step or?
No, we just wanted to
it's
bring it in
just-
front of you that we're still moving forward with it, that he's going to come back in July, probably request approval for design. I think it's,
July.
I think he's talking July.
July is
Yeah.
design.
So to move to the next phase,
It was just more to
just keep it.
give you an idea and keep you apprised of it, because this was what we, yeah,
Well, we started a year and a half or 2 years ago on this.
right.
talking
This is
about
why
this.
we had to send our water sample internationally to get our plant size, so. Now we have all the work behind it as to what needs to be done next, so.
All right.
That's it.
Okay. Any other building and maintenance issues?
I think that's enough. Garage door, wastewater treatment plant,
We had a broken urinal,
cameras.
cameras, had a broken urinal in the bathroom, park stuff, yeah. Well, we just did that the other night, last night.
All right. EDA. Do we have the minutes in here? I've got that one.
Yeah, minutes are on the bottom.
I was gonna say,
We had a great groundbreaking for the bike trail.
there was probably a solid 60 people there, I think, for the groundbreaking. It was really
A
good.
couple TV stations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's on the front of the Drift List Journal.
Mhm.
That came out today. Good coverage.
All right. Park board meet?
We did park tours, splash pads discussion. That's going to open when it can. We can't open necessarily Memorial Day weekend because of the tower project that's going on. It's unfortunately got to have water pressure and a full tower to do that. So
We could close the hydrant.
No, the hydrant has to
No.
stay open. Well, yeah, if we build up pressure then.
that only
Oh,
lasts
that
so
worked,
long, Steve.
Brian.
So, other than that, everything is kind of status quo.
I should have added this to new business. Park board, the water ordinance.
Oh, yes.
That was attached to your email. It was a ordinance regulating non-essential water usage upon critical water deficiency, as authorized by Minnesota statute. I did not do so well on this one, so Greg had a good hand in this one. We'd like to, this would allow upon declaration of a critical water deficiency, a mandatory emergency water we could enforce a mandatory water conservation when we are given the DNR drought conditions that they're telling us that we need to cut back on pumping capacity. We then have the power and the ability to ask our residents to do the same and conserve water. So I would like approval to adopt this, our water ordinance.
So it states, so it's gotta be it's only the DNR.
The governor executive order, if he issues that, then we have our ordinance to
Yep.
match his
We
order.
don't,
We can do some with drought conditions, but it's not as,
Well,
We could go above and beyond this if you wanted to. I think the state laws just expect us to have this piece in place.
this in
at least.
place, yeah.
So that if the governor says this part of the state is in a critical water emergency, then we can, as Sam said, go out and make sure people aren't watering their lawn at noon, and, you know, that sort of stuff is just critical.
Mhm.
If you wanted to go beyond that and say, well, you want to be able to call a water emergency, at other times you could, I suppose nothing would stop you. But this is leaving that discretion out of your hands. You just do it if somebody
Do it
else
if
says.
someone tells you.
I'll make a motion to approve the state ordinance.
second,
Have a motion and a second to, what are we doing, accepting it or adopting it?
Adopting.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is that it for park board? Library board.
Well, we skipped over chamber.
Met last night.
No, we did.
No, we met last week. But we skipped over chamber. Did you want to share anything from chamber?
Just that we have a brand new director who started yesterday, Beth Weedman. She'll be present for the next city council this year.
Oh,
Perfect.
Yeah, so library, we met 8 days ago, I guess. We had some reconsideration forms submitted from patrons and discussed those regarding book banning and book censoring. The ALA, so the American Library Association, has very strict rules on, or regulations on banning books or not, as does the SACO system, which we're a part of. So we are in compliance with that. There's a new state law coming into effect, if it's approved, about a ban on banning books, and the board will keep their eye on that to make sure we're in compliance there too. But we did move some materials to the adult resource section for now, and we'll revisit it as needed in coming months.
good. Arts board.
The arts was busy last month. We approved we voted on 4th of July button winners submitted through the school district in lieu of the chamber as well. We also have 3 postcard contest design winners who are Todd Reagan, Jolene Cannon, and Remy Love. And we also approved scholarships for senior awards night, which will be tomorrow night. And those names will be available next month because it's going to be a surprise for the students.
Good. And going back to the chamber, does the new director, it's a part-time position,
Part-time position.
but does that mean more time is spent over the summer months than the other months? Or?
At this point, it is approximately 20 hours a week year-round.
Yeah.
So plenty of planning to do year-round with that, but there is some flex because there are times like around the 4th of July where there's going to be a lot more hours and like take a little time off right after that. So
Sure.
we're being flexible and trying to set her up for success.
Good. Fire department, anything?
nothing, I don't think.
See, we have a sheriff's report. Anybody else have anything for our meeting?
I've got to add one thing. The Rucker Basketball League has started. We had our first opening night last Sunday. We got like a game, we got even a half in, and then it rained, but it was a good turnout. There was a news piece on,
KL.
yep, so that was exciting. It's good. There's 50 players, so ranging from such age to 15, I think. I won't say how old the oldest is, but,
Such age.
but
He's sitting at the end of
he
the
might
table.
be at the end of the table, but yeah, it was a good turnout. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Every Sunday afternoon at 5. 4, 5.
Well, if nobody has anything else, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
They had grills. Yeah, they had hot dogs. They had brats.